Tēnā koutou katoa. Tēnā koe ki te whare e tū nei, tū tonu. Tēnā koutou ki ngā mana whenua me te haukainga o tēnei rohi. Tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou ki ngā koraua, me ngā kuia, me ngā pākeke i tēnei ruma, mo te kaupapa, o tērā kaupapa, i tērā kaupapa. Ngā mihi nui ki a koutou mō tō kaihautūtanga, mō tō mahi, ia rā. Tēnā koutou ki ngā kaimahi, me ngā ringawera, i tēnei rā, tēnā koutou, tēnā kōrua ko Julia me Jennifer, i tēnei rā, tēnā koutou ki ngā kai kōrero mā, i tēnei wā hoki. Tēnā koutou ki a koutou katoa. I ahu mai au I whia, I te taho tōku pāpā no Ingarani, no Kotarani, no Itāria ahau, I te taho o tōku māma ko Tararua te maunga, ko Hoki o te awa, ko Tainui te waka, ko Ngāti Raukawa te iwi, ko Ngāti Pariraukawa te hapu, ko ngā tokuwaru te marae. Ko Kassie Hartendorp tōku ingoa. Kia ora tātou. I am really happy to be here, actually. I've really enjoyed listening to the talk so far, and I did this kind of foolish thing that I sometimes trick myself into doing, where I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to write a talk. I'm just going to see what the vibe is on the day. You know, it's a very scientific kind of measurement, you know, of the vibe. Work out what needs to be said or what doesn't need to be said, or what I might just have a yarn about that pops into my head as soon as I get to the lectern. And unfortunately what that means is I kind of get into a bit of a frantic state beforehand, being like, oh, why have I done this again? This is a foolish thing to do. So bear with me, because I will be sharing some thoughts that are more coming from all of you today rather than pre-prepared notes. But bear with me as I go through that, because it won't be word perfect, but that may be good. I don't know. We'll find out. We're all in this together. Hey, so when I thought of social solutions, I really thought of whakapapa. And probably that's because I always think about whakapapa, or whakapapa makes me always think about it. When I forget, it turns back up again. And for me, whakapapa is the connector, the ultimate connector between us, our ancestors, our grandchildren, our mokopuna. It is between us, the living world, the natural world that people such as our climate activists so beautifully talked about. It is us between the spiritual world as well. It is a huge amount of connectedness. It shows us a web of relationships in every possible dimension and direction that we could imagine. And so when I look around this room, I also see a web of relationships. I see Kay Jones at the front here. Kay Jones really beautifully gifted me and my partner a few years ago $2,000 to get our proper first flat together. And expected nothing in return. And she said, I've learnt that that you don't always get things back if you give a loan, but if you give something with your heart as a gift, then you don't expect to see it back. And then you know that that person is receiving a gift and it's okay. I see Martin over here, who I just connected with, who has shown up in all kinds of moments when we're organising protests on Parliament and we need a sound system, and then he gets there and he realises we've already got one, and he's like, what have you been doing? This is a waste of my time, but support you and the kaupapa, whatever you're doing. Thank you, Martin. I just saw Paul at the back earlier. We were in a socialist group called the Workers' Party. Years and years and years ago. Not that long, maybe like 10 years. But we hadn't seen each other in a long time, and I thought, another web of relationships. I see people I don't know personally, but where my work grows on. So I see and I hear very clearly Mike Treen over there and the team at Unite, who actually instigated the first petition I was ever a part of, the petition for a $15 minimum wage, and how wonderful it is to see the minimum wage keep going up every year, the living wage movement becoming more and more fruitful and massive every single year. And it was through him that I met the Unite organiser and now my beloved friend Helene Prattley, who taught me about political organising. I saw a Fesol this morning who speaks of e pili hauwalfa, who was taught to me by the late Teresia Teiwa, who taught me that before anything, we are part of Te Moana Nui Akiwa. We are part of the Great Pacific Ocean, and how sad it was that I got to my 20s before I even really thought about that. How sad is that? How much did I lose in that time when I could have been learning so much about our ocean, our Sea of Islands? And it was through Teresia Teiwa who taught me where and how to stand as tangata whenua, who led me back to my whānau and my hapu after decades of disconnection. So I'm thinking as I sit in this room that whakapapa is not just who we are and where we come from. It also includes, in a way, the people who cross our path, whose ancestors interacted with our ancestors, whose grandchildren will interact with each other's grandchildren. Because we are multitudes in our connectedness across space, time, life, death. We are literally everywhere. And whakapapa gives us a framework to see those connections, to really bring them to life like a massive web of endless pathways to each other. We have a blueprint here for how we can create change. And we need it because the truth is that I can't even fathom how big the neoliberal colonial capitalist system is to have done what it has done. Actually, it is too big for me to even comprehend. And it is powerful. And so I know, if it is powerful, that here at the bottom of the world, or maybe we're the top of the world, I'll say we're the top of the world, in our beautiful Pacific Ocean, if the tentacles of colonial capitalism have managed to arrive here, that must mean that it's pretty powerful. And so if something's pretty powerful, it makes me think that we really, really, really need to build the power and take seriously the challenge of fighting that power. And we don't have the access to the money or the resources or the massive structures that neoliberal capitalism has been so good at building, creating, and reinforcing over and over and over again. We don't have that, but we have whakapapa. We have people. We have an invisible network of billions who want and need big change. And the thing for me is that when I sit here in this room, I really realise we all have something to contribute, you know? When I first started, wanting to make change, whatever that meant, I thought we all had to be the same. I thought we all had to be the Dame Whina Cooper, or we all had to be the Angela Davis, or we all had to be the Martin Luther King, or whoever it is. But in any social movement, or in any good team that you may have been a part of, you don't actually need people of all the same skills and strengths to do the mahi at the end. You need everyone. You need everyone in their difference. We all have something to contribute, but it won't look all the same. And if we are going to build a progressive movement, or whatever we want to call it, that can really challenge colonial capitalism, like go deep on that, because that's what we need, then we need all of our strengths combined. It's not enough to just keep going in our silos on our own. It's not enough. So my question is, what happens? Just dream with me for a second. What happens when we harness the wisdom and humility of Efeso Collins, the fighting volume of Mike Treen, the fire over here, although a little bit tempered, of Julia Whaipoti, the brains of our Moana Jackson and Jane Kelsey at the back, the clarity of Te Arawhatu, the frontline fighters, the love of mothers, the cooks in the kitchen, the kaumātua who offer their karakia time and time and time again, the planners, the organisers, the caregivers, the timekeepers, the people who set up the chairs and stay to lock up the doors at the end of the event when everyone else has gone home. I've thought a lot about tino rangatiratanga. Man, I wish I had all the answers. I don't. I won't promise them. But one part that I can't stop thinking about within the very words of tino rangatiratanga is the ranga and the tira, the weaving and the people. And as Veronica Tawhai mentioned on Facebook this morning, she talks about it as independence. And so what the work is that we need to be doing is the weaving together to create collective independences, because in working together, we create new social solutions that are not just relevant and effective, but they are truly collective. Because what the union movement knows is that when you fight and you win, you never ever forget how to fight and to win. When our Indigenous movement knows is that our struggle is ancestral and we never do anything alone. What our researchers and academics teach us is that we live in a man-made system that has names and methods, and we can challenge it. What our queer movement teaches us is that we need to find love and joy when the world will not give it to us. What our healers teach us is that we feel injustice in our bodies and we need to act and move to create change. We have so much to learn from each other and so much to teach each other. And imagine what is possible when we are really, really woven. So let's be willing to weave. Let's be willing to learn and to teach. Let us be willing to listen. Let us be willing to love and to fight and then to love again. Let us be willing to cross paths in our whakapapa. Let us be willing to sit a while and stay there and weave the future we are ready to see. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Kia ora.